Yes. Ah, there it was. Thank you. Uh, thanks all for joining. We're gonna rebrand this the low key keynote. What we're I think yeah, we're just gonna talk about creative today. And what's happening in the world and how it affects how we think about things in terms of brands and their place in the world. Yeah, so I'll just jump in. I'm Dan Schrod, Executive Creative Director, and this
I'm James Holland, Senior Creative Director. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. There we go. All right. So where are we heading in the world? In the world of marketing and advertising, it's more specifically. I think the things that we're trying to take a look at today is really first help understand the importance of creativity in the world. And I think we'll get into really specifically why. But creative right now matters more than ever. Of course, you're going to hear creative directors say that. But I think we all know that the brands that we work with every day are seen in different contexts than they perhaps were before. And we're going to talk in depth about that. Then we'll talk about doing innovative and brave work and how that gets done and why it's necessary. And we'll show that logic and emotion work together to create great creative work. And you can't really have one without the other when it's people that we're talking to. So, and to make bigger, broader business impact through creative. I mean, ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, accomplish goals for businesses to move a company from one place to another and, to watch them grow and flourish. That is what creative is for. And that's why we're here. And look at cool stuff. Okay, so we'll just chapter one. I'm not a creative, but I think yeah, we're all creative. That's one point we want to make right out of the gate. Like we're in marketing and advertising, so we look at the world differently. We see things differently, and we pay attention to what's good, and what sucks, in ways a lot of people don't. And I think the creative to non-creative person, or that's a false line. It doesn't exist. We're all creative in our own way. We all express it differently. We might not have it in kind of our professional skill set, but it doesn't matter. We all work in the creative field, and so we all own it in a sense. So James is going to take you through and kind of look at what the world looks like right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we probably all know, the world is getting more creative. Like, when we think about what's out there, like there's creativity in a Spotify playlist. Like the album kind of died, and like the playlist sort of taken over. Like that is a creative pursuit. You're like building that list. There's creativity there.
Here,
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's whether it's TikTok or Instagram, whatever, creators, like anyone can be a creator anymore. It's no longer a job in the way that it was before, where only certain people got to tell the world they were creative. Everybody is creative, and we as creatives, as an industry, should learn from what's out there. Like we should be using this and growing from it. There's creativity in video games. Like nowadays, it's not uncommon where the game allows you to build your own world, to innovate, to create, to grow, to be creative in that sense. Like generations being brought up where their default is to create, not just to play, to actually make things. Like that's the way the world is going, and will keep going that way, where everybody can make things, everybody can create. If we look at how creative technology is used, like it's changing the way things are. Like the ABBA Voyage. I don't know if you guys know this one, but like the use of kind of VR and effectively like the virtualizing of the people with ABBA who appear on stage as real avatars is incredible. Like it's depicting them as they were in 1977, not as they are today. It's fascinating. Like the use of technology to be more creative, to change experiences, to change where we stay. You know, we don't have to check into a Hilton anymore. Like we can stay in a place that represents us, that represents like the way that we think about the world. We can stay in, you know, I'm staying in a lovely little Airbnb in Rhino. It's very nice, it's very weird, it's very me. I'm delighted by this, you know. Like you don't have to stay somewhere bland anymore. And you know, this is probably a personal love of sneakers, but you know, even that, like we can customize clothing. You can customize this through Etsy. You can get things made. Like I have, my daughter has like a whole bunch of custom clothing that was made through Etsy that, you know, we can ask for. Like in our lives, we expect everything to be custom and bespoke and tailored for us and our needs. And that's super exciting. I've never been done before. Like in the history of the world, there's never been this much bespoking. And things like AI are just enabling us to be faster and more interesting. I don't know if you saw this campaign for ketchup that Heinz did, where effectively they just put ketchup into an image generator, and because of what's out there, it basically just generated Heinz bottles, like weird Heinz bottles. They make the point that, you know, Heinz is ketchup. It's one and the same. Like you don't think of it otherwise. It's a super interesting way of using a tool like AI and actually take advantage of the fact that, you know, these tools take from the world and distill it. So if your brand is everywhere, you can use this to actually tell people like we are the default. That's a fascinating use of AI, and so we couldn't do even 5 years ago. So as I say, we are a more creative, literate society, and we demand more creativity. Our clients demand more creativity. Our customers demand more creativity. So this is where the world's going.
Yeah. In fact, we don't even see this stuff anymore. Like seriously, that like we talk about stock blindness. There's definitely B2B blindness where, you know, in all of the context you've just seen, and you're bombarded with customization and, you know, creativity experiences all the time. And then you come across this. What are you getting out of that? Nothing. You know, as a viewer, this is nothing.
Yeah.
And it will continue to be nothing. So what do we do about it? Because it's still out there. And I think, you know, this is brands, all brands kind of do this same thing, which is, you know, and we'll get into why, you know, this line, potential unleashed. What does that mean? You know, and what brand is it for? Do you know? Is it H&M? Is it about the clothes? Is it Nike? Is it about some of the accessories, I guess? Is it Head and Shoulders? Is it about the hair? You know, what potential is being unleashed here? And or is it, you know, the music that this person is listening to? The fact is you can't really tell, and I don't even know what it is. I can't tell you what potential is being unleashed in this ad. And I think it's so, you know, we live in a world where it's sometimes okay, it feels okay to kind of do something like this, because it feels safe, and we'll talk a little bit about why. And I think, you know, there's this tension between B2B and B2C that I think we talk about in the agency quite often, but you know, I think it's out there in the larger world too. And what's the real difference between B2B and B2C? These are the decision-making processes that go into deciding what kind of coffee you drank this morning. You know, is it close by? Is it, you know, is it good coffee? And is it my idea of what good coffee is? Does it express my taste? Is it expensive? Can I grab breakfast? You know, how many can I carry? These are all really short-term kind of, you know, I don't know, just I want something good. I need it now. I'll go out and get it. You know, what is the risk if I don't find the right coffee for me? You know, if I'm a snob and I don't want to go to Starbucks, but I end up at Starbucks anyway, what's the risk to me? Like, I'll have slightly less good coffee. But in B2B, we deal with these, right? Which is how long should it last? Will it blow my budget? You know, will this make money? What will my boss think? What will my team think? there's reputation wrapped up in that decision-making process. So instead of coffee, like, yeah, what's the risk of a B2B purchase? It's much higher. It's about your reputation, and that is why brands, and I think this is also true. Like, I think there's this common misperception that in B2C, the brands matter more. Like, branding matters more in B2C than it does in B2B. And that is fundamentally not true. Brands matter more in B2B than B2C. And it's because of that risk. It's because of that, investment that people make when they make a decision. It is about their reputation. They're putting their job on the line. It's potentially their livelihood. It matters a lot to them, and therefore these brands actually, are rate higher in terms of brand value than some of the brands that we use every day. So it's not okay to do like the stock photography stuff that we saw a little bit ago, but that's where we see it, And why is that? And when the stakes are so high, what do? Well, we kind of group together and we play it safe, right? We see brands, another brand that you might be in the same space doing illustration, and so we start to do illustration. We see, some color palettes kind of taking root in a market, and then we do the same color palette to just kind of fit in, make sure that, if it doesn't stick out too far, then it'll all be okay. And the fact is, if it doesn't stick out too far at all, then nobody will see it. And here's an example of the cybersecurity visual landscape. And if you do something just a little different, other than fear and blue and technology and whatever else is scary and locks, you can stand out in a market like that. But you have to be bold in order to do it. So yeah, B2B, we're adrift on a sea of sameness, and there is hope. So
how do we make friends with discomfort?
Yeah.
Like, playing it safe is often the riskiest thing of all. Yeah, like removing risk creates risk for us because we are ignored. So yeah, as you say, taking no risk is the greatest risk of all. It's harder to be risky, but it's always better. Like, it's always going to stand out more to take a risk and to try something new. Yeah. And this is where it makes a difference. Like, so example of our work recently, we did some work with a hearing aid provider, and the client, good on her, hates this stuff. Like, she hates the world of like generic, terrible hearing aid advertising. She wants something different, stand out. And we knew that we're aiming at a very specific audience. We're actually aiming at people who make hearing aids, fit hearing aids, and they love ears, and they are craftsmen who work with ears every day. So we did this. We did this crazy marble morphing ear that actually went to like different ear shapes, and it was mad. And like, in the world of B2B, this worked because the audience loves ears. In the world of B2C, you can never do this. You couldn't get away with this. Scare the hell out of people. And that's why sometimes B2B can be more exciting. It can be, if we have a niche audience, we can make niche creative solutions that really cut through, that really stand out. And this worked fantastically well. We got drum awards at the back of it, got commended, it won a bunch of stuff, and it did really well as a campaign because that client prepared to take a risk. And then, do you want to talk to Workday?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this campaign. This was a Super Bowl ad, I think, from a few years ago.
Last year.
Last year, was it? Okay. B2B company
Mm-hmm.
selling.
Good night! Hey, corporate types, will you stop calling each other rock stars?
You're a rock star. You are a rock star.
Rock stars, please.
You know what it takes to be a rock star?
I've trashed hotel rooms in 43 countries.
I was on the road since I was 16.
I've done my share of bad things. Also, your share of bad things.
We know that using Workday for finance and HR makes you great at your job.
That don't make you a rock star.
Oh, Ted in finance, you're a rock star.
Hey, Liz in HR, can you do this?
Unless you work with an actual rock star.
You are a rock star.
Thank you.
Who's the new guy?
Hi, I'm Oswald.
Hello, Oswald.
Give it up for Pam. Pam, you are a rock star. I wasn't gonna say it.
What I love about that is actually the client who signed that off, that was a big risk. Like there's a lot of money involved in that. There's a lot of pressure involved in that and getting it right. And it's incredible. Like it went really viral. It's won a bunch of awards. You know, like I think taking risk creates amazing rewards.
And it's a simple idea too. Like it's just, plays on the, we've all heard it.
Yeah.
I may have even said it somewhat recently. Yeah, this campaign I think is a really great example of, taking technology, making an experience, and doing something that kind of unfolds even deeper and farther than like the original idea I think even started with. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but this is a campaign from Sherwin-Williams, and it's their AI color tool for architects, B2B audience, right? They're making it for architects. And yeah, we'll take a look at it real quick and if I can get it to play.
Our world is filled with color. In fact, the human eye can detect over 1 million of them. Yet color is more than what we see. Informed by our unique experiences, color means something different to each of us. So how do you find that one color? The one that you, and only you, can see. Introducing Speaking in Color from Sherwin-Williams, a global leader in color coatings that is redefining how human and intuitive the color experience can be. The first ever AI color system is designed to help architects and like-minded visionaries find colors based on personal inspiration. All they have to do is say the words.
Let's try crystal clear Caribbean Ocean. Yeah, that's it.
Speaking in Color is voice activated and instantly analyzes millions of images via a search algorithm and optical recognition technology to create a personalized color palette. Through conversation and the intuitive power of AI, users easily discover,
Maybe that's too blue. Let's lighten it up just a little bit.
refine,
I like that. Let's add a little bit more green.
and find their 1 in a million color.
I love it. That's perfect.
But that's just the beginning.
Let's see the colors from the art district in Miami.
Snow Canyon, Utah.
Sparkly and champagne at sunset. Let's get some more mossy greens in there, something really rich.
I like what I'm seeing, but I want more gray than blue.
Okay, let's make it pop.
That is it.
The more people speak, the more we hear. As a result, Speaking in Color is providing insights into cultural and geographical influences of individual hues to create the largest data set of color attribution in the world. Inspired by human experience, Sherwin-Williams is redefining how people connect with color, making it possible to find the impossible, the 1 in a million. Now tell us, what inspires you?
That won the Cannes for best B2B advertising last year.
Yeah.
So there's a whole category now just for B2B in Cannes. So we keep big after.
Yeah. I think, the idea behind that's really simple. You have people who care very much about color and want something really specific. Give them the power to just express themselves in a way and find what it is that they want. Then I think beyond that, it goes further to say like, okay, well, then are you creating a new set of colors? And what is it that people are looking for in different parts of the world? I mean, that part of it and the data behind it is amazing. Like what is that brand learning about its audience through the campaign? A lot. And I think that's what's really cool about it too. Like it not only empowers the user, but it empowers the brand at the same time.
I think it would be remiss of us not to show some of our own work. So this is an ad we made for Accenture.
your purchase.
The brief was ads about tracking links. You can really push it if you really want to, and that will actually connect them.
Okay, chapter 2, Here Be Dragons. I think earlier this week we were talking about problem solving and kind of our responsibility in terms of creative and relationship to it. And I think Here Be Dragons is really about problem solving. And the way that we do that in the creative world is through ideas, stories, and experiences. And so we're going to kind of take you through how we think about things here at TMP. And yeah, the way that we can bring stories to life and the way we come up with ideas. And the way that they're all linked together to really create something that's special. Yeah, and it all starts with your problem. If it's so much easier to start there. You can't create something without wanting to solve a problem, like whether or not you're a product designer. You're trying to fill a need. You're trying to make the world better by putting something in a place where somebody needs it. That's what marketing does too. And so starting with a problem or a challenge is really, everything to us. So that's typically the brief as we talk about it. But why are we here? What's the challenge? How, what business problem are you trying to solve? And then not only that, but then how does that actually line up with what your customer wants? I think that, making sure that you're clear, and we'll show a little bit about how we think about that in terms of strategy. That really is the foundation for whatever we do therefore forward. So from the challenge, the brief, we go into ideation, come up with something that solves the customer's problem and the business's problem. And then we build a story around it. Because I think, as you've seen, people don't really remember information as much as they remember stories. We're hardwired to understand and remember stories. Those are the things that stay with us. And we carry those things around with us all the time. That's who people are. So having a story around the idea is necessary. And then from there, you bring that story to life through an experience. And, like with Sherwin-Williams, for example, that could be digital, could be physical. The experience of how to interact with a story and idea is fundamental to how it all works together. And of course, we talk about things in terms of lead generation and moving things to sales. That's all part of the experience too. But you also have to think about, okay, before they're ready to hit a button, to download a thing, to engage with you as a brand, what got them there? What got them to the point where they felt like now's the time to hit that button? It's an idea, it's a story. They either know your brand, they believe in you, they understand what you do in a unique way, and they feel comfortable to move to the next phase of the decision-making process from one stage of the funnel to the next. And all that's an experience, plain and simple. Outcomes. Like, you can't go through this whole process without trying to accomplish what the challenge is, and how are you going to frame how you solve that problem if you presuppose the idea, the story, and the experience all work together. Well, we can talk about those early on, and you should be able to start to see how the outcomes are going to be fulfilled even before we actually make the work and before it goes into market. So let's start and go one at a time. Start with ideas. Ideas are everything. They can also be about anything. The idea is really the thing, the spark, that solves both your audience's problem and your problem. It can be something really simple. It should be simple if you want it to be memorable, or it could be complicated, but typically we don't see those succeeding. How do we get to an idea? For us, it usually starts with these 4 things. Does it solve the problem? Does it recognize a unique insight about the audience? Does it play to the brand's advantage? And does it answer the question that we are asking in the brief? It should hit on all 4. And we know we got a good one if it does that. And if it doesn't, then you probably will never see it. So let's talk about, how an idea, for instance. This is an example from a pitch relatively recently. This is where it all started. And, obviously we were trying to solve a business problem, but this was the personal benefit. This is the audience benefit. This is the world that people live in, which is, according to Microsoft's most recent work trend index, 48% of employees and 53% of managers report they're burned out at work. We all feel a sense of burnout because it's post-pandemic, it's a hybrid, multi-cloud, whatever world, where we're being pulled between our personal lives and our work lives all the time. And it's a lot. And there are times where it feels like you're going to fall apart and the world may burn around us. But it's fine, right? We're resilient. We move on. We do great things anyway. We're amazing. Okay, so here's what that cross looks like for this particular instance. The problem is clunky software leads to employee burnout, and employee burnout leads to losing customers. It's bad. Strategy, therefore, show how the brand makes it work easier to keep your burnout alter ego under the surface where it belongs. The insight is inside all of us, there's a burnout alter ego waiting on a chance to surface. The advantage on the product side is they have an AI tool woven into every solution that makes work easier. So an idea came out of that, which is battle to keep burnout at bay. Freshworks offers a force field that protects precious time and restores focus. Inside that little force field is what work should feel like. It's calm when there's, it's energizing, it's vibrant. It's where we want to be and how we want to be ourselves. And then we associate that with the brand shape. It all works, right? Imagine work that feels like it isn't. AI-enabled tools make it easier to be more productive, personal, and fun. What work should feel like. And then, because it's an AI tool, why not use AI tools to bring the idea to life? And so we created this world through AI of, the feeling of being snowed under, and what that might feel like if you're not. And then a bunch of scenes, like I said, the world may burn around you, or not, and you have a place to be, and Freshworks can make an oasis where there doesn't seem to be one. Okay, so this, regardless of whether or not you fall in love with the imagery, this is the story and the way that it all should work, right? Inside all of us, there's that burnout alter ego. Burnout is the enemy of individuality. That's the idea. We could express that idea in a lot of different ways. We showed, like, what if we made a force field? But that idea of burnout is the enemy of individuality. Like, when you feel burnout, you actually feel less human, which is funny that they have an AI tool to solve that problem. But anyway, yeah, that's how it all should work, and how a story comes from that idea, how the experience can come to life, and then what kind of outcomes we intend to solve through the campaign. Okay, so that's an idea and a story that comes out of it. Let's go into stories and talk about one that we thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. So the best stories are ones that can be retold. So as you said, people forget facts, remember stories.
All right.
So we're going to show an example of that. So this was a brief we did for Spotify. Storytelling tactics that help sales team persuade media planners and B2B enterprise advertisers that Spotify is the best way to engage a B2B enterprise audience. Now, we all think of Spotify as a B2C tool, really, but actually, everyone's people, and we probably all have Spotify, so it's a fantastic B2B tool. So how do we tell that story? So the challenge here was, how do we provide sales teams with the idea that demonstrates the how of Spotify advertising's offering? Our idea here was noise cancelling advertising, reaching the most immersed audience in their own personal soundscape. We know that when people are tuned into music or podcast, they're immersed in listening landscapes unique to them. So we sort of leaned into that. So I will show how that is all brought to life, and how, as an experience, it's not just a story, we provide it in a way of really interesting tactics too. So it's an expanded story. The following slides form a short narrative for people to tell why Spotify advertising building on your personal system positioning. So we know that modern life is noisy. Yeah, traffic, drilling, talking, everything. A lot of unwanted noise around us.
Yeah, especially in this office.
Yeah, right now, yeah, for sure. One of the biggest culprits is advertising. You know, like banner ads, TV, radio. It can be a kind of real sensory overload. So we tune it out. We learn we learn to control our own perception of the world and defocus from TV, skip the ads, switch channels, etc. And technology then gives us that control. There's a huge rise in noise cancelling headphones. Who here owns noise cancelling headphones? I assume
everybody.
Yeah, exactly, because we want to control it all around us. And what some call noise, others call advertising. Brands that bombard people with content that is not right for them, or that lands at the wrong time will fall on deaf ears. But speak to them when in the right headspace and they'll tune in. So there's a better way. We believe brands can get noticed and stand apart from noise by appearing to the right people at the right time. So this is noise cancelling advertising, which is to reach the most immersed audience, fit in with their surroundings, and listeners can't choose their ads, but we can, and we can adapt to what they are tuned into. So with Spotify advertising, all ears are on you. We make sure they're tuned in. I'm not going to read the manifesto,
but there always is one.
There always is one. So how do we use to life? So what tactics are we going to use here? So firstly, you know, making ads that really bring to life visually as well as, you know, in an auditory way these different worlds. We want to sort of talk about different people's audio worlds, like the kind of music they listen to, what they want to hear, etc. We then want to customize it. So because we're aiming at specific people, specific advertisers, we want to make individual avatars for each of them. So for example, imagine we want to target Jenny. She's a highly influential head of media at Saatchi & Saatchi. We might create an avatar for her and place it in a world that represents her favorite music genre. In her case, she's a big vintage West Coast hip hop fan. So let's make her into an avatar. Let's put it there and let's aim that ad directly at her. We can then create playlists just for her, ones that are specific to her needs, linked to that ad. That brings her right there. We can do geo-targeting ads, so she sees it when she walks out of Saatchi & Saatchi. We can use "Nothing is impossible," which is their slogan, to support the mission, make it feel really bespoke. As you say, everything's bespoke these days. Everything's creative. We can bring it into social media. We can animate these things, make it more beautiful, make it more interesting. We know that motion works so much harder than statics do. We can create like a branching narrative PowerPoint game, sort of choose your adventure game that we can play, make it more interactive, make it more fun. We can rub shoulders with high content, so we can basically pair up with other content. So, you know, things like North Face, Frozen Planet podcasts, we can match things like that. Or we can sort of talk about productivity. We can make productive playlists for her team, her staff, and create a whole academy. So media planners are creating single source, helpful bite-sized information. We can actually create like a whole hub for this. So I won't go through every single thing, but you know, we can bring it into Wrapped for advertising. We can create noise cancelling ambient installations. And so, you know, you end up with this entire tactic ecosystem. So someone is really targeted, really connected to, and it feels very bespoke and very true to what they want and their needs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of demonstrates an experience, but we'll break down one other one really quickly. And this one was for Splunk. Actually, if you're wandering around the office, there are some hanging panels, and we highlight this as well in the office if you're interested in some of the success factors and things like that from the campaign. But I think Splunk's their tagline is "Turn data into doing," which I really love. I think that's a great tagline. I think it's a simple idea, and I think what it does, and you'll see it here, is it empowers, you know, agencies, partners, the brand itself to express itself in a really broad number of ways. You know, to just say, like, it's simple, turn data into doing, right? How do you bring that idea to life? And how do you bring it into an experience? And that was really kind of our charge for this was that, you know, they struggle to be seen as more than a security and IT provider, in part because data is an abstract and hard to manage thing. And so we wanted to create an experience where we can bring people in and have them see data in a different way, physically rather than in the abstract, which is, I mean, you know, with most companies like Splunk, for instance, you know, like it can always feel like there's a wall between what's happening in the digital realm and then how that actually affects us in the physical. And so it can feel distant and far. So the point here is to bring that closer, right? And bring the distant and far into something that people can touch. And so same deal, problem, strategy, insight, advantage, square, all good, you know. But yeah, let people step into a world where they can interact with something and feel the data or see its impact in a different tactile way. So they had you know, a space that we redesigned for them in order to bring that to bear. And this was for it was in partnership with AWS as well. So, you know, we could lean on AWS for some co-branding money. But yeah, this is how it all came to life, where, you know, you can actually kind of walk through this experience. We have, you know, as you move through different stations for people to kind of experience what happens when Splunk and AWS do their thing and what that means in the real world when it comes to delivery. Yeah, and creates a whole experience that you know, looks great. And like, I think, you know, it also brings the power of a partnership like that to life in new ways for executives. I think that's, you know, kind of the primary example. They were trying to, you know, get certain number of meetings and things like that through the experience. And for that, it was really successful. In fact, I think on the boards out there, it'll tell you exactly how successful it was. So, but yeah, same thing, like take the abstract, move it into the real, and turn data into doing becomes something that's tangible in a way that it isn't when it's just a tagline. That's really fun. Okay. We're almost done. Holy cow. That went a lot faster than I thought it was gonna. Yeah. We have like 90 slides. That was quick. Anyway, so a couple things to think about as we leave you. But you know, creativity and the experience that we're trying to create with advertising, marketing, all those kinds of things, like it is intended to add to people's experience. Like we said at the very beginning, you know, when people feel empowered and when brands also kind of tune into the fact that like their customers can make things with their tools and their brand, and the customers have some ownership over the brand, that's pretty cool. You know, and that's the world we live in right now. It's not, you know, there's not a hard line between customer and brand. It's much more collaborative. And the brands that succeed are the ones that can kind of manage that, right? That can deal with the push and pull that they get from customers. And it's always good when you're allowing people to do things with your brand. Can I tell my friends and family about this work? I mean, you know, as creatives, this is, you know, we always feel a sense of pride when you walk by a billboard and you say that, you know, I did that thing, you know. And I know you do too, when it comes to the work that you see for the brands that we all get to work with. I mean, you see work all around this office that we're proud of, and we're proud of making it with you. And we want to feel that pride all the time. That's all. If you're trying to say everything, you aren't saying anything. I think same deal, you know, B2B in a particular way, because we deal with a lot of really technical stuff or really expensive stuff, leans into the side of, well, if we make sure that our audience is as formed as possible, then they're more likely to buy. And to a degree, that's true. You know, I think especially when the stakes are high and people feel risk, they want to know that they're making the right decision. So yeah, you need to give people information. It's just a matter of where, you know. And I think what we're talking about here with creative is there's there are lines to be drawn in relationship to how people are interacting with your brand, and give them a simple idea first, or, let them interact with something easy early, and then give them what they need later if they get serious about it. So, this is not to say that it all needs to be fun. It all needs to be interactive. It all needs to be experiential. There's a place for it all. And the information belongs in the hands of the people that need to make that hard decision. But they're also people, and they respond to the same things that they're on that, like, I don't stop, thinking about, my personal life the moment that I walk into this office or into my home office at work, which is not even 4 steps from my bedroom, pretty much. So like, there's no line that I'm crossing, and we never cross a line anymore between what we're deciding. It's just the stakes go up, between that cup of coffee or whether or not, I need to buy a piece of software for the team. Like, I take both of those things seriously to different levels, but yeah, I I do pay attention to what the advertising is in the same way. So ideas, stories, and experiences. Keep an open mind. The solution might not be what you expected. And if it's not expected, that's usually good. People pay attention to things that are incongruent with their experience. If something sticks out, again, like, we pay attention to stories and we recognize patterns. If something sticks out from a pattern, we're quick to see it. That's the basis of advertising, pretty much. So, don't be afraid of the unexpected. And stories enable us to paint perfect outcomes, which is nice. And in storytelling, like, you have an experience and you tell that story to the first person, and the story might be good, but by the time you tell it to the 5th person, it's amazing. And you've worked it out. That's the power that you have, with your brand, to craft perfect stories, and to make things feel a certain way for your audience. No amount of marketing can undo a bad experience. I think most brands really understand this in the age of, CX, customer experience. Brands know that the customer experience is really critical to whether or not somebody's going to buy from you ever again. And so brands take it much more seriously than I think they used to. And the investment has certainly been there. So, I think, it's really a matter of brand perception. And we did a conversation about research and measurement and things like that the other day. Getting into understanding what audiences feel about your company has a lot to do with their experiences and the pass along factor that people have. So what are you fighting in relationship to the experience that might be out there? Do you have negative influences out in the market, or, are things relatively good? That changes how you market. But you're facing an uphill battle if you have bad experiences as part of your brand. So, working with us, let's face your dragon. We love problem solving. It's fun to get a big problem and work out how to solve it, potentially over time. James this morning talked about the Nutanix brand. It's a big problem when it comes to people in our market don't see us as a hardware company, but we've changed fundamentally what we do, and they need to see us in a new light. That doesn't happen overnight, and the leads that they get in one area might be the wrong customers. And so moving that to a different direction takes years. And those kind of problems are amazing to solve. And when it works, man, the work looks amazing, and I mean, just the way that Nutanix has changed as an organization as a result is astounding. Help us understand your brand. Where are you weak? Where are you strong? What can we add? Where has your brand evolved over time, and where does it need to evolve? Those are conversations that we can be having. And then where you're heading, like, as I said, does your brand need to go to a place that it can't right now? And if that's something that we can help you with, we're all ears. Yep. So yeah. Do you have anything to add?
Okay, pretty thoroughly.
All right. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
With all this creativity, all of these influences and the speed at which we're all sort of operating.
Yeah.
Do you think that that story to migrate or evolve a brand is getting a little faster for all of us?
Yes. Yeah, I think it, if I think about brand evolution, maybe 20 years ago, it probably didn't like, if a brand was fairly consistent for 5 years, maybe 10 sometimes, it was okay, because the amount of media that people were processing all the time was so much less. You had broadcast channels, you had print, and digital didn't really exist. So like the experience or the interaction that a brand had with its customers was very limited. And therefore, yeah, it's the amount of media that we're all dealing with, the tools that we have, the technology that we have to interact with things and pass information around to one another that we didn't have before, that demands that brands kind of stay in that conversation all the time.
I think brands have to work harder than ever these days, and they also have to keep evolving. Like I think the days of like there being a brand and a rebrand, and then that brand lasts 5 years, and it's a rebrand, and then that's 5 years. That's kind of stopped. Brands still rebrand. There's lots of reasons to do it, but brands have to constantly move forward and evolve. And I think things like they have to serve in different places. You have to have your guideline should have interactivity principles as well as motion principles as well as audio principles.
Yeah.
And a lot of guidelines, a lot of brands, they're still static PDFs. We're not that in there. Like, I think the way that we think about brands has to change, has to evolve because the channels have. We didn't have TikTok and Instagram and social media 10 years ago. Like it's a whole new world now. And I think a lot of brands are stuck in like the 2000s, 2010s. The world has fundamentally changed, but the way that we interact with the world has changed. And so brands need to evolve to keep up with that.
Yeah. We were talking in the AI conversation from earlier this week, and also to plug in our next week, we're having AI week in March, where we're going to kind of pick apart the impact that AI is having both on advertising and marketing in general. But we were talking about it the other day that, adding AI prompts into a brand guide would be a really interesting way to stay current when it comes to like how to express a brand through AI, because it allows for people to experiment, and it encourages people to say like, yeah, there's new technology coming out there, and you might as well open up rather than lock it down. So yeah.
So you mentioned no amount of marketing can undo a bad experience, but I would imagine that it needs to play a role in that. So I guess like how does it fit into like changing perception? Like as well, being from dish business, a big challenge of ours was kind of differentiating from the reputation of dish. Like, totally different. So like what role does marketing take in that? And what are the other pieces that come to kind of resetting an expectation? Almost like rebranding in a way.
Yeah. Some marketing, so I will contradict it a little bit, but like I do think like, if you think about the choices that you make personally and professionally, if you do have a bad experience with a brand, the likelihood of you going back to that one is pretty low. And I do think it can, like, it's basically a breach of trust. That's what it boils down to. A company breaks trust with its customer because the expectations that were set weren't followed through, and that can always be repaired in human relationships, but it takes a long time. And you might get them back, but it's going to be a while, and they're going to need to have a lot of other people potentially telling them that the experience that they're having with that same brand might be better and might not be what it was before. We're more likely to trust our peers when it comes to making a decision. And if it's a business decision, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm more likely to trust my peers, especially in a higher risk scenario, because that decision is that much higher. So I do think marketing has a role to play when it comes to rebuilding trust, but I think there are so many other things that are probably more important. In the case of like brand and distance from bad experiences, yeah, I think there are strategies that you could, potentially employ to, make it clear that there's a difference. But I've also seen those go the other way too, where if people know that because your brand reputation has been bad, that you've done a rebrand and renamed the company, but it's still the same thing, it's not going to help either. So yeah. Yeah. So like it really does, I think it means that you have to go back to fundamentals, make sure the experience is great for people, and then marketing has a role to play, because then you can amplify that great experience rather than, try to fix something that's broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if this goes back, in college, this is many years ago, so I'm totally dating myself, but we had to study a crisis management where Tylenol, do you remember when Tylenol was hacked? And
yeah.
And they decided to completely innovate in a new way and change the landscape of over-the-counter drugs by putting those seal caps on it. So now, all of a sudden, they've become the trusted standard when they were sabotaged
Right.
by employees. So I think you have to be super bold, over the top, and you raise the standard, and all of a sudden, that trust almost, I wouldn't say immediately follows, but you're a lot more likely to be trusted.
Yeah.
And now your competitors are on their heels going, how do we come up with that seal cap?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they might have been licking their chops at that very moment where they're like, oh, Tylenol is done, Right. Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, it does get to the point where, if you address the trust problem right away, you're more likely to win in the long run, and if you can innovate around it, that's all the better. But that, like, same deal, like, it's not always it's not marketing, necessarily. Like, that's an innovation to a product, and so that changes the physical experience with the thing. So I mean, I think it matters where the problem is. I don't know. There was Crispin Porter Bogusky, an agency here in Boulder, a number of years ago, did a campaign for Domino's. I don't know if you remember that. But basically, they had Domino's, before they really did the campaign, they had them completely redo their pizza recipe. And they made that part of the campaign, right? And same deal, like, if the pizza sucks and nobody's going to buy it, doesn't matter if you put a Noid on it or not, start with the basics, right? And if
Great campaign. I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah.
When I talked about Tylenol, because their commercials were like, yeah, our pizza tastes like cardboard. We recognize that. We fixed it. And then they actually follow through. Like, now when I go to like Super Bowl parties or whatever, there's a bunch of Domino's.
Yep.
Self-awareness
Right.
stuff, really.
Yeah.
And now they're the innovators. They have the delivery traffic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they've done,
cannot
yeah.
deliver anywhere. It's like, how can
Yep. Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting point here on experience versus reputation. So what we're talking about, like, is reputation. Like, Dish may not have the best reputation, but that is a good experience. So then, to the point Scoot's made, it's about authenticity and, like, being authentic and, like, being open and being, accessible to your base, and sort of talking through, like, the Tylenol point. That was experience, the fixed experience, not marketing. That was great experiences will fix bad experiences. Like, innovating pizza is a better experience, and we can talk about it. Like, we can market that, but fundamentally the experience has to be good. If the experience dish is good and the marketing is good, then people will come and it change.
Right.
But yeah, I think in that point, the point about bad experiences, I think it was more the sort of bad market experiences. Like, if you've got a user journey that's broken, if you've got ads that don't link through properly, that kind of stuff. If the fundamentals aren't there, that's going to really kill any marketing campaign. So just getting those details right. But think about experiences. Yeah.
Great questions. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Any questions from the faceless chat window? No?
Nothing.
Cool. Okay.
Great.
Well, thanks all for
Thank you, everybody.
joining. Yeah.